boy's hands trembled, pressed firmly against her tiny chest. The motorcycle gang's roar was getting closer, their fury unmistakable. Nobody could have predicted what happened next, and what unfolded over the next 72 hours shook the entire town to its core. This is a story you'll never forget. The late afternoon sun draped itself over Willow Creek, painting the streets with a warm, amber glow. It was the kind of light that softened the world, making even cracked sidewalks seem gentle, forgiving. Children's laughter echoed faintly from the park nearby, mingling with the hum of distant traffic. The scent of fresh-cut grass mingled with the faint aroma of barbecue drifting from a nearby backyard. On the corner, a little girl pedaled a turquoise bicycle with determination and joy. Her name was Lily Harper, 7 years old, curls bouncing with every push of her legs. The bike had been a gift for her birthday, and she treated it like a treasure. The little basket on the front carried a stuffed dog named Buster, frayed at the ears but loved fiercely. Lily rang the tiny bell at every turn, delighting in the crisp, cheerful chime that bounced between houses. She knew the streets well, every crack, every tree root, every mailman's usual shortcut. Her route was predictable, comforting, a small kingdom she ruled from the seat of her bike. The sunlight caught her eyes, turning them golden brown, and she rode with that innocent confidence that only children possess, the belief that the world was safe, fair, and full of wonders. But the world, even in its amber perfection, carries hidden shadows. From the alley near the corner of Maple and Fifth, someone watched. A boy, roughly 10, hunched over and nearly invisible against the chain-link fence and overflowing dumpster. His name was Noah, though few in Willow Creek knew he existed. Dirt smudged his cheeks, his shoes worn through, and his oversized hoodie hung like a tent around his small frame. He had been homeless for nearly a year, sleeping wherever he could, learning quickly that being unseen often meant being safe. Noah had learned to read the world from its edges, noticing tiny gestures, fleeting expressions, and subtle changes in posture that others missed. And today, something in Lily's movements made him pause. A subtle wobble in her handlebars, a blink too long, a small frown crossing her otherwise joyful face. His heart skipped. He had seen fear in children before, but never this sudden, unexplainable halt of life mid-motion. The moment stretched. Lily's hands left the handlebars entirely, clutching her chest, and her bike swerved dangerously. Her legs kicked out, trying to keep balance, but gravity won. She fell sideways with a sickening thud, the wheels spinning uselessly, Buster tumbling from the basket onto the cracked pavement. For an instant, the world seemed to freeze, the warm sunlight turning cold, heavy, almost accusing. Noah ran before thinking. His feet pounded the concrete, mismatched sneakers slapping against the street as adrenaline surged through him. He reached Lily in a heartbeat, dropping to his knees beside her small, fragile body. Her skin was pale, lips slightly bluish, and her eyes half-closed, unfocused. Noah's hands hovered over her chest, trembling but determined. Memories surged, memories he hadn't allowed himself to feel in months. His mother, her laughter, her hands guiding his own as she taught him to be brave. She had died suddenly 2 years ago, leaving him lost in foster homes and eventually on the streets. But now, standing here beside Lily, he felt a clarity that came from pain and loss. He could not fail her. Not like he had failed his mother. He pressed his palms to her chest, counting silently, listening for breath that wouldn't come. The sounds of the street, the laughter, the distant engines, the birds, faded into nothing. It was just him and her. The small, desperate rhythm of life hanging by a thread between his hands. Around the corner, the rumble of motorcycles grew louder. He knew the biker's daughter wasn't just any child. Lily's father, a man whose reputation made the neighborhood hold its breath, was racing toward them. Noah focused. Each press of his hands was both a plea and a promise. He remembered lessons from a shelter, a volunteer who had taught him CPR months ago in a desperate winter when he'd had nothing else to do. He compressed, held, and released, listening for the miraculous. Time distorted, seconds stretched endlessly. Then a faint cough, a tiny, victorious gasp. Lily's eyelids fluttered, and she drew a ragged, uneven breath. Noah's heart leapt, but relief was immediate and dangerous. The roar of engines signaled something far more terrifying than the threat of death. Her father was seconds away, and his fury was palpable. The leader of the bikers, a massive man named Jack Iron Callahan, rounded the corner, face twisted in rage. His leather vest gleamed in the late sun, patches of red and black symbols that carried decades of fear. His boots thudded against the pavement, shaking dust from the cracked sidewalk. He skidded to a stop, eyes locked on Noah, who was still kneeling beside Lily. Time slowed. The world held its breath again. Noah expected the anger, the fury, maybe even the violence he had seen in glimpses while hiding on the streets. But Jack's expression didn't match the stories. His eyes weren't full of wrath. They were searching, scanning, calculating. He took a slow, deliberate step closer. The tension in the air was a living thing, electric, almost unbearable. "Is she?" Jack's voice broke, low and gravelly. The single word trembled on the edge of uncertainty. He crouched down, closer to his daughter, his hands hovering like a protective shield. Noah glanced up, meeting the gaze of a man who could crush him in seconds, yet whose eyes revealed a flicker of fear, helplessness. Lily coughed again, a little stronger this time, and her tiny hand reached toward Noah instinctively. Jack's massive frame shifted, and for the first time Noah felt the weight of his own courage reflected back at him. The impossible had happened, he had saved a life, but what would follow was uncertain. Jack exhaled slowly, then said something that no one in the alley expected. "Kid, you just saved my daughter's life." His voice wasn't angry, it wasn't threatening, it was reverent, heavy with something Noah couldn't place. Confusion, awe, respect, maybe all three. Around them the bikers slowed, observing, unsure of the scene unfolding. Noah's chest heaved, his small body still trembling from adrenaline. Lily's breathing steadied, and the first faint smile appeared on her face. But the bikers remained, looming, silent, the tension unbroken. It felt like the street itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next move. Then Jack did something no one in Willow Creek could have predicted, something that would ripple through the town over the next 3 days, changing how everyone saw courage, loyalty, and the meaning of family. Jack's voice was calm now, but the weight behind it carried the kind of authority that made grown men step back. "You could have let her," he started, but stopped himself, shaking his head. His jaw clenched, not in anger, but in the raw, unfiltered understanding of what had just happened. Noah didn't move, too stunned to speak, still crouched over Lily, who now clutched Buster tightly, blinking against the sunlight. Jack knelt beside his daughter, brushing hair from her face. His touch was gentle, careful, a stark contrast to the hardened exterior the town knew. "She's okay," he said, more to himself than anyone else. Then, eyes snapping toward Noah, he added quietly, "Thanks." It was a single word, but it carried a gravity that made Noah's chest tighten. No one had ever looked at him that way, like he mattered, like his life had meaning. The other bikers shifted, their rough faces softened by disbelief and curiosity. Some nodded at Noah, a silent acknowledgement, while others just stared, as if trying to reconcile the image of this small, scruffy boy standing victorious beside their daughter. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, muttered under his breath, "Kids got guts." And in that tiny phrase, the unspoken truth was clear. Bravery doesn't care about size, looks, or circumstance. Noah's hands fell to his sides, shaking as the adrenaline finally drained. The heat of the day pressed down, and for the first time he noticed the sweat on his brow, the dirt smeared across his face, the ripped edges of his jacket. He felt exposed, vulnerable, but also alive. More alive than he had in months. The tension of fear, the crushing weight of invisibility, and the cold nights on concrete all melted for a brief, shining moment. Lily looked up at him, her little face full of trust and wonder. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was soft but unwavering, like a bell ringing in a quiet room. Noah swallowed hard, his throat dry, and nodded. He wanted to say something back, something important, but words failed him. Instead, he offered a small, awkward smile, the kind that carried a lifetime of survival and just a hint of hope. Jack watched the exchange silently. For a man who had lived with violence and dominance, the purity of this moment struck something deep within him. He understood, in a way most wouldn't, that Noah had done more than save his daughter. He had reminded everyone in that alley of something easily forgotten. Courage could come from the most unlikely places. The next hours blurred into a strange, dreamlike sequence. Lily's parents insisted on driving her home, their protective gestures clumsy but sincere. Jack remained unusually quiet, glancing at Noah from the corner of his eye, unsure what to make of him. The boy who had always been unseen was now impossible to ignore. Noah followed at a distance, keeping pace without being invited, and for the first time in his life, he felt like part of a world that had previously excluded him. He didn't know if he belonged here, but the warmth of gratitude and trust wrapped around him like a fragile blanket. It was new, intoxicating, and terrifying all at once. By the time they reached the Harper residence, the sun had dipped low, streaking the sky with pinks and purples. Jack opened the gate, holding it for Lily with an expression that softened into something almost human, a flicker of vulnerability. The neighbors peeked curiously, drawn out by the sight of bikers, a child, and a scruffy boy standing on the sidewalk like he'd always belonged. Inside, Lily's mother wrapped her daughter in a tight embrace. "You're safe," she whispered, her voice trembling, her hands shaking as if holding her child could somehow erase the danger. Lily leaned against her mother, but her eyes found Noah across the room. He stood frozen, unsure if he should leave, if he even had the right to remain. But the small nod from Jack told him he was welcome, or at least tolerated. Then Jack did something no one expected. He gestured toward Noah. "Kid," he said, his voice carrying both authority and something unspoken, "come here." Noah hesitated, heart hammering. He had never been called forward like that, not in foster homes, not in shelters, not anywhere. Slowly, cautiously, he stepped inside. Jack's hand rested briefly on Noah's shoulder. "You did good," he said, eyes locking onto the boy's. There was no anger, no judgment, just recognition, the kind that could change a life. Noah felt a lump in his throat. For the first time, someone in power wasn't threatening him. Someone in power was honoring him. It was then that he realized something he had forgot. Bravery wasn't measured by where you came from or by what the world expected of you. Bravery was the choice to act when everything screamed that you shouldn't. And tonight, under the soft glow of porch lights, surrounded by the people who feared and admired Jack, Noah understood that one small action could ripple outward, touching lives in ways he could never imagine. But the story was far from over. Outside, the rumble of engines faded into the evening, and with it came the whisper of a promise that the world, for all its danger and cruelty, still had room for heroes, even those who no one ever saw coming. The night air was cool, tinged with the scent of wet asphalt and distant pine. Noah lay on the roof of the abandoned warehouse he called home, staring at the stars through a gap in the corrugated metal. His heart was still pounding from the day's events, his mind spinning faster than the wheels of Lily's turquoise bicycle. He couldn't stop replaying her small, frightened face and the miraculous cough that had brought her back to life. He thought about Jack "Iron" Callahan, a man whose reputation had loomed like a shadow over the town, now softened by gratitude and respect. The boy felt unworthy, but something deeper had shifted inside him, a spark of hope, fragile but stubborn, that perhaps the world wasn't entirely against him. That maybe, for the first time, he mattered. The warehouse was cold, and the thin cardboard mattress beneath him did little to ease the ache in his bones. But warmth flowed from memory, the small nod from Jack, Lily's whispered "thank you," the unspoken acknowledgement that he had saved a life. For months he had existed on the fringes, invisible and ignored, but now he had left a mark. Yet with that realization came fear. The bikers were unpredictable. He knew stories about Jack's group, the Hell's Angels, how they demanded loyalty, feared betrayal, and punished the slightest mistake. Noah worried that what he had done might provoke anger or suspicion. They didn't know him. Could they see a homeless child as a hero, or just as another stray in need of control? His thoughts were interrupted by the distant hum of motorcycles. They rolled slowly through the streets, engines vibrating in his chest. Noah froze. The sound of leather boots hitting pavement made his stomach tight. He wasn't sure if they were coming for him, or if it was just coincidence, but instinct told him to stay hidden. He huddled under the shadow of the warehouse's edge, feeling the cold bite at his fingers, waiting, listening. Minutes passed like hours. The motorcycle slowed, stopped, and then the faint echo of voices drifted through the night. Noah strained to hear. And then one voice, deep, familiar, commanding, cut through the darkness. "Kid, you got a minute?" Noah's stomach dropped. His pulse raced. This wasn't just an invitation, it was a summons. He hesitated. But something inside him urged forward courage he hadn't known he had. The boy took a deep breath, wiped his grimy hands on his hoodie, and stepped out of the shadows. The meeting took place at the edge of the warehouse district, under the glow of a single flickering street lamp. Jack, Lily's father, waited alongside two other bikers, their massive silhouettes outlined by the soft light. Noah approached slowly, his small frame dwarfed by the men, the weight of anticipation pressing down on him. Jack gestured for him to come closer. "I've been watching you," he said, voice low and deliberate. "Not today. Today was obvious, but I've been watching for a while." Noah's breath caught. He wasn't sure if he wanted to hear more or flee. He had survived by staying invisible, and suddenly the world was asking him to be seen. Jack continued, "You saved Lily. You didn't think, you acted. That takes courage." He paused, his gaze softening. "Where I come from, loyalty and bravery mean everything. And you showed both, even though no one made you." Noah's throat tightened. He had never been told anything like that. He had spent years feeling expendable, overlooked, unworthy. And here was a man whose life had been defined by fear and respect, telling him he mattered. His eyes filled with a strange mix of pride and disbelief. Then the bikers did something that stunned him. Instead of the anger he had expected, instead of suspicion, they offered him food, simple sandwiches, warm drinks, gestures of care that seemed alien yet comforting. Jack watched him carefully. "You're part of this if you want to be," he said. Noah froze. The words carried weight beyond anything he had imagined. A choice lay before him. Continue as he always had, alone and invisible, or step into a world that feared and revered power, a world that could either protect him or destroy him. Noah accepted the food, hands shaking, heart hammering. Each bite grounded him, made the surreal situation real. He noticed the bikers' softer sides, the small jokes, the glances exchanged, the subtle care in their body language. They were men feared by many, yet here they were, honoring him for his bravery, not his pedigree, not his background. Just courage. For the first time in a long time, Noah felt a glimmer of belonging. He realized that heroism could come from anyone, and sometimes the world would surprise you with generosity when you least expected it. But just as relief settled in, a distant sound shattered the calm. A screech of tires, a shout echoing through the alley. Noah stiffened. His mind raced. Danger was never far, and he understood now that life on the edge meant every moment of triumph could be followed by chaos. The scream came from the Harper residence. Noah's stomach twisted. He didn't need to think. He ran, heart in his throat, through the dimly lit streets, past parked cars and overflowing trash bins. Bikers followed, slower, heavier, but steady. The night seemed alive with tension, every shadow a potential threat. When Noah arrived, he saw a man in a ski mask trying to pry open the side gate. Lily stood frozen, small and terrified, Buster clutched in her arms. Her mother screamed, hands reaching for her daughter, but the intruder's strength was terrifying. Noah's instincts kicked in. Without hesitation, he shouted, "Leave her alone!" and ran toward the man. The figure turned, surprised by the audacity of this small boy charging forward. Noah ducked, rolled, and grabbed a heavy piece of wood from the garden. The intruder stumbled back, cursing. Jack and the other bikers arrived moments later, engines roaring, boots pounding, surrounding the would-be thief. The masked man froze, suddenly realizing the odds. "Kid!" Jack barked, "Back up!" Noah obeyed, heart still hammering, watching the bikers assert control with calm precision. Within seconds, the intruder was disarmed, surrounded, and held until the police arrived. Lily ran into her father's arms, sobbing, and Noah sank against the fence, trembling. Jack approached him, voice quiet but firm. "That was close. You kept her safe once again. You've got the heart of a lion, kid, don't forget it." Noah nodded, barely able to speak. The bikers' respect was unlike anything he had ever experienced. They hadn't just acknowledged his courage, they had embraced him, protected him, elevated him. As the adrenaline faded, Noah realized something profound. Bravery wasn't just about survival. It was about stepping forward, even when the world expected you to stay invisible. And for the first time, he understood that he was more than a homeless boy on the streets. He was someone who could change outcomes, someone who mattered in ways he had never imagined. The town would remember this night, but Noah would remember it differently. Not for the chaos, the fear, or the violence, but for the quiet moment when a group of hardened men recognized the heart of a boy they had never met, and the world shifted, just a little, toward hope. Next morning, Willow Creek awoke to whispers. News of the night's events had spread like wildfire. A homeless boy had not only saved the daughter of the town's most feared biker, but had also helped thwart an intruder. The idea seemed impossible to many, a story too strange to believe without seeing it firsthand. Yet the whispers carried awe, admiration, and an undercurrent of something rarely spoken in this town. Hope. Noah stayed in the alley near his warehouse hideout, watching from the shadows. For the first time, he didn't feel invisible. Children waved to him as they walked to school, adults nodded with respect instead of disdain, and even strangers gave him small smiles. The world seemed to recognize him in a way it never had before. It was overwhelming, yet strangely comforting. He thought about Lily, her curls bouncing as she rode her turquoise bicycle the next morning, laughing as if the previous night's terror had never existed. But Noah remembered it. He remembered the fear, the adrenaline, the fragile weight of her life in his hands. That memory had changed him. It had shown him that courage could exist in the most unexpected bodies and that the smallest actions could ripple far beyond imagination. Jack Iron Callahan arrived at the alley mid-morning, his massive presence casting a shadow over Noah. But this time there was no menace in his stride, only deliberate authority and a faint hint of admiration. "Kid," he said, voice steady, "you're coming with me today." Noah's stomach tightened. He didn't know what to expect. Ride with the bikers, meet the town, face some challenge. "You saved Lily," Jack continued, "and you've shown guts, brains, and heart. That doesn't go unnoticed. We've got ways to help kids like you, ways to make sure someone's got your back, someone who won't ever let you fall through the cracks." Noah swallowed hard. This was new. The world had always seemed like a place that only took, only ignored, only punished. But now it offered guidance, protection, belonging. The boy hesitated, memories of foster homes, cold streets, and nights spent in abandoned warehouses weighing heavily against the unfamiliar promise of safety. But the kindness in Jack's tone, the quiet respect in his eyes, and the recognition of his courage nudged him forward. Noah stepped closer. He didn't know what tomorrow held, but for the first time in years, he felt that he might not face it alone. Jack clapped a hand on Noah's shoulder, solid and grounding. "You're stronger than you know, kid. Let's see how far that strength can go." For the first time, Noah felt a pulse of pride that wasn't tied to survival or fear. It was pure, unfiltered acknowledgement of who he truly was. By mid-afternoon, the bikers had gathered at their clubhouse on the outskirts of town. The building loomed large, weathered red brick with steel doors, graffiti-edged windows, and the faint scent of oil and gasoline lingering in the air. Noah followed Jack through the narrow hallway, ears ringing with stories of the club's history, tales of loyalty and brotherhood, and lessons etched into every scar on the wall. Noah felt out of place, a small boy surrounded by men who could crush him effortlessly, yet he also felt a strange sense of belonging. Jack guided him to a quiet corner, away from the laughter, the raucous energy, and the smell of strong coffee mixed with motor oil. "Sit," Jack said, pointing to a chair. "I want you to understand something. Bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's invisible. And you just proved it in the biggest way possible." Noah nodded, feeling both humbled and terrified. He remembered the fear on Lily's face, the way her tiny hand had reached for him instinctively, and the adrenaline that had coursed through him as he pressed her chest with trembling hand. That memory, once a source of panic, now became a foundation of confidence, a testament to what he was capable of. Jack continued, "People will tell you you don't matter, that you're too small, too weak, too invisible. Don't listen to them. They haven't seen what you can do. They haven't seen how a single act of courage can change the lives of everyone around you." Noah swallowed hard, letting the words sink in. Then came the unexpected. The bikers presented him with a gift. Not expensive, not flashy, just a simple leather jacket, too big for his small frame, with the club's emblem stitched into the back. "You've earned this," Jack said. "Not because you're one of us yet, but because you've shown heart, and heart counts for more than anything." Noah ran his fingers over the leather, the rough texture grounding him in reality. It was more than a jacket. It was recognition, respect, and a tangible proof that courage could elevate even the most unseen and overlooked. The weight of it settled on his shoulders, both literally and metaphorically. Outside, the sunset stretched across the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. Noah breathed deeply, feeling the cool evening air. Following morning, Willow Creek was buzzing. Rumors of the homeless boy who saved the biker's daughter spread through coffee shops, schoolyards, and grocery aisles. People whispered in awe, some with skepticism, others with genuine admiration. Noah, though small and unassuming, was no longer invisible. Even from the shadows of his warehouse hideout, he felt the weight of attention pressing down, strange, intoxicating, and slightly frightening. He stepped out cautiously, clutching the oversized leather jacket the bikers had given him. It hung like armor on his thin frame, making him feel taller, braver, more present in the world. Children waved, neighbors nodded, and adults smiled. It was surreal, the way something so small, a single act of courage, could ripple outward and shift perception. He had spent years being overlooked, dismissed, and invisible, and now the town regarded him differently. By midday, the Harper family arrived at the warehouse, Lily's tiny hand gripping Noah's. "Come on," she said, her voice confident and playful. "I want to show you something." Noah followed, unsure of what to expect. Lily led him to the park where kids were playing soccer and riding bicycles. "This is where I practice," she explained, showing him the worn spots in the grass where she had learned to balance. The sight of normalcy, of a world that moved on despite its dangers, filled Noah with a bittersweet ache. He wanted to belong here, to feel part of something stable and safe, yet old fears tugged at him. Foster homes, abandoned streets, nights spent shivering alone. Still, Lily's smile reminded him that courage could forge connections, that one small act could create trust stronger than any past pain. Jack appeared shortly after, riding slowly through the park on his motorcycle, the engine's rumble steady and commanding. The bikers had arrived to ensure Noah's safety, to show him that the world could be a place of support as well as fear. Jack parked, towering over the boy, but with a gentle hand resting on his shoulder. "You've got a choice now," he said, voice low but firm. "The world can take you or you can take it, but never forget you've got what it takes to face it." Noah looked around at the park. The children, Lily, the bikers, and finally at himself in the oversized jacket. The world felt alive, full of potential. And in that moment, he understood something he hadn't dared to hope for. Bravery wasn't just an action, it was a way of living, a statement that you matter even when the world has forgotten you. News crews arrived that afternoon, curious and eager to capture the story of the boy who had changed the perception of an entire town overnight. Cameras rolled, microphones hovered, and strangers asked questions Noah hadn't expected to answer. He stood awkwardly, shuffling his feet, but Jack stayed nearby, a steady presence, as if silently telling him it was okay to be seen. Noah described the moment Lily fell, his voice trembling at first, then gaining strength as he relived the instinctual courage that had guided him. He spoke of fear, of adrenaline, of the memory of his mother's death that had once paralyzed him. And when he finished, the crowd was silent, the weight of the story sinking in. People weren't just impressed. They were moved, some wiping tears from their eyes, others holding children close as if to whisper a quiet lesson in bravery. Jack approached the microphone, his massive frame intimidating, yet the words he spoke carried a depth few expected. "This boy," he said, pointing toward Noah, "did what most of us only hope we could. He showed the kind of courage that can't be taught. He reminded all of us that heroes don't wear badges, they don't ride motorcycles, and sometimes they don't even have a home. They're just brave enough to act when it matters most." Noah's chest swelled with something new, pride, validation, a sense of place. For years, he had navigated the shadows, thinking he didn't matter. Now everyone around him could see it. His actions, his heart, his bravery. They had spoken louder than fear, louder than circumstance, louder than the world's assumptions. As evening fell, the town gathered at the park. People he had never met approached him, offering smiles, handshakes, and quiet words of admiration. The Harper family enveloped him in gratitude that felt like warmth on frozen skin. Lily handed him a small bracelet she had made, braided in bright colors, a symbol of connection and trust. Noah accepted it, overwhelmed, realizing that courage had earned him not just respect, but a place in the hearts of others. And in that moment, he understood the truth he had carried alone for so long. Bravery isn't just about surviving, it's about leaving a mark on the world, touching lives in ways that ripple far beyond what we can see. Days passed, but the story didn't fade. The town remembered the night Lily almost didn't make it, remembered the boy who had run toward danger while everyone else froze. Noah's life had transformed in ways he could hardly imagine. He still slept in the warehouse at night, still knew the cold and hunger of the streets, but the fear that once defined him had been replaced by something stronger. Confidence, belonging, and the knowledge that one small person could change an entire town. Jack and the bikers continued to watch over him, not with judgment, but with mentorship. They offered guidance, protection, and a strange but profound friendship that gave Noah something he had never known: stability. The leather jacket became a symbol, not of power, but of respect earned through courage. It was more than a garment. It was a declaration to the world that he mattered, that he could stand tall even when the odds were stacked against him. Noah also began to reach out, connecting with children at the park, offering help where he could, teaching small lessons of bravery, and quietly becoming a hero in ways far beyond that one fateful night. His story became an emblem of hope, proof that even the most overlooked, the most invisible, could make a difference. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold and violet streaks, Noah watched Lily ride her turquoise bicycle through the park, her laughter echoing like music in the air. He felt a quiet joy swell within him, the kind that comes from knowing you belong, that you've left a mark on hearts and lives that will endure. Jack approached silently, resting a heavy hand on his shoulder. "You've done good, kid," he said, voice low, proud. "Never forget that. Courage, it's what makes people remember who you are." Noah nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon, feeling the wind, the warmth, and the truth that bravery could change not just a moment, but an entire life. In that golden hour, amidst the quiet murmurs of a town learning to hope again, Noah realized the most extraordinary truth of all. Sometimes the world's heroes are the ones it has forgotten, and the most powerful acts come from the hearts that refuse to give up. Weeks passed, and Willow Creek settled into a new rhythm, but Noah's life had transformed entirely. The warehouse still offered solitude, yet it no longer felt like a prison. It was a vantage point, a place where he could see the world and know he belonged in it. The town had seen bravery in its purest form, and the echoes of that night lingered in every corner. Noah walked through the park one afternoon, the leather jacket snug on his small shoulders. Children ran past, laughter ringing in the air. Parents nodded, offering polite smiles that carried respect and curiosity. Even the police officers who had been skeptical of him before gave a small, knowing glance. Noah realized he had become part of the community, not just as the boy who saved a life, but as a symbol of courage and hope. Jack and the bikers had begun including him in small tasks, simple errands, teaching him motorcycle safety, even letting him witness decisions that shaped their club. It was more than mentorship, it was trust. The boy who had once been invisible now had people who counted on him, who valued his judgment, who protected him as fiercely as he had protected Lily. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Noah and Lily sat on a park bench, legs swinging, Buster tucked between them. "You're like a superhero," Lily said softly. Noah smiled, uncertain if she truly understood, but feeling the warmth of the words. "No," he replied, "I just did what I had to do." She tilted her head, thoughtful. "But sometimes doing what's right, that's the hardest part." Noah looked at the horizon, the sky painted with gold, orange, and violet streaks, and realized she was right. Courage wasn't about recognition, it was about choice, even when fear screamed louder than hope. And he had chosen, time and again. That truth settled inside him like a promise, stronger than any leather jacket or praise from the bikers. And in that quiet, golden moment, Noah understood that bravery could ripple outward, touching lives far beyond what he could imagine. He had started invisible, alone, and scared, yet he had become a guardian, a symbol, a boy whose courage reminded a town, and himself, that one act, one heartbeat, could change everything. Months later, Willow Creek would remember Noah's name forever. The story of the homeless boy who saved the biker's daughter had spread beyond the town, inspiring countless others. But for Noah, the impact was quiet, personal, and deeply human. He still walked streets once familiar only in shadows, but now he did so with confidence. He saw people differently. They weren't threats or strangers. They were a world that could be changed, one brave act at a time. One afternoon, as he polished Buster's frayed ears and adjusted the leather jacket that had become part of his identity, Jack approached. The biker's massive frame cast a long shadow, but his tone was gentle. "Kid, you've shown everyone that courage isn't about strength or size. It's about heart. You've done more than you know." Noah's chest swelled with gratitude, realizing that his life had shifted irrevocably. He looked toward the park where Lily played, laughter echoing, and thought about the day it all began. The fall, the fear, the sudden choice to act when no one else could. The memory was painful and precious, a reminder that life was fragile yet beautiful, and that courage could emerge from the most overlooked hearts. Noah took a deep breath, letting the wind carry away the weight of years spent in invisibility. He knew he would face hardships still, nights on the streets, challenges ahead, but he also knew something essential. He was no longer alone. The town, the bikers, Lily, and even the memories of his mother's love created a chain of connection that could not be broken. And as the sun dipped low, painting the world in amber light, Noah felt a quiet truth settle in his heart. Heroes weren't born, they were made in moments of choice, in seconds of courage, in the bravery to reach for life when the world expected you to stay down. And Noah, once invisible, had done just that. With the leather jacket snug on his shoulders, the little boy who had once been unseen walked forward, each step echoing courage, each heartbeat leaving an imprint that would last far longer than any fear. The town, the bikers, the world itself had witnessed a transformation. A boy became a symbol, a life saved became a life remembered, and hope had been restored, one heartbeat at a time. Noah's story reminds us that courage can come from anyone, anywhere, even those we overlook. One small act can change lives, hearts, and a town forever. If this story moved you, subscribe, like,